Tell me honestly, because I did protect him. For a long time. I smiled beside him, praised him when people asked, and pretended quiet love was enough for a woman like me. But quiet love starts to feel like no love when you are the only one keeping the marriage alive. So yes, I made a joke at our anniversary party. Yes, I called it an auction. Yes, I let people bid on replacing my husband. He sat there with both hands around his glass, calm like always. And I thought that meant he had finally accepted what he was worth. My name is Sloane Mercer. I am 34, and I build public images for people who are rich enough to pay someone else to make them look warm. Of course, that sounds fake when I say it like that, but it is still a skill. I know how a room works. I know when people are bored. I know when a story needs a better ending. So yes, I made a joke at my anniversary party. Yes, I called it an auction. And yes, my husband sat there with both hands around his glass, calm like always, as if silence made him innocent. By dessert, I was sure everyone would finally understand why I was tired. Ethan and I had been together 9 years and married 6. I know how that sounds. Long enough to know better. Long enough to be grateful. Long enough to stop expecting fireworks every time a man walks into a room. But be honest. A marriage can be safe and still feel empty. In the beginning, his quietness felt like peace. Ethan was not loud. He did not perform. He did not need the whole room to look at him. I used to think that made him mature. My friends dated men who shouted over waiters and checked mirrors more than menus. Ethan remembered things. Small things. The kind that feel like love when you are younger. One year, my father forgot my birthday. Not almost forgot. Forgot. My mother called 2 days later with an excuse about stress, and my younger sister Brielle sent a late voice note with that soft little guilt voice everyone forgave her for. Ethan did not say much. He never did. He drove across town in the rain and brought me one cupcake from the bakery I liked. The frosting had slid to one side in the box. The candle was bent. He lit it in our apartment while his jacket dripped on the floor, and he asked me to make a wish. I did not tell him this then, but I wished he would always see me. For a while I thought he did. Every Friday night we had a ritual. Cheap dumplings from a corner place with terrible lighting. We ate them in the car because the shop only had 2 tables, and one always wobbled. Then we rated the week from 1 to 10. He usually gave numbers like 6.5, because of course Ethan treated feelings like data. I liked that once. Then I got tired of being loved in decimals. When I wanted passion, Ethan gave me solutions. When I wanted him to pull me close at a party, he asked if I wanted water. When I wanted him to tell people I was the best thing in his life, he cleaned my car without mentioning it. That was his problem. He loved through actions so quiet that nobody else could hear them. And maybe that would have been enough for a different woman. Not for me. I had spent my whole life fighting not to disappear. Brielle was the sweet one, the easy one, the one people protected. I was the sharp one, the loud one, the one who knew how to make dinner tables turn toward her. If I did not make people laugh, they looked past me. If I did not control the mood, someone else did. So I learned. I became good at it. My friends loved that version of me. Marcy especially. She was the first to laugh, always. If I said something sharp, Marcy made it safe by laughing before anyone could decide it was too much. Tessa followed because Tessa followed everything. Serena was different. Serena Vale did not laugh just because everyone else did. That should have annoyed me less than it did. The first time I joked about Ethan at brunch, it was harmless. Be honest, every woman complains. I said my husband had the emotional range of an office printer. Marcy nearly choked on her mimosa. Tessa covered her mouth and smiled. Serena looked down at her plate. Of course, Serena had to make it serious. She asked if Ethan would find that funny. I told her Ethan barely found anything funny, which was part of the point. The table laughed again, but softer. That was how it started. One brunch, one joke. One little truth dressed up nicely enough for people to enjoy. After that, Ethan became easy material. If he packed me lunch, I said he was trying to earn husband points. If he forgot to compliment my dress, I said living with him was like being married to airport furniture. If he texted me a grocery list, I showed Marcy and said romance was dead, but apparently oat milk was urgent. Was it kind? No. Was it criminal? Also no. People act now like I spent years planning how to break him. I did not. I was bored. I was lonely. I wanted someone to say that I was not crazy for wanting more than a quiet man and clean counters. One Thursday, after brunch, Ethan asked about Serena. He asked it softly while I was rinsing a champagne glass from a client's sample box. He wanted to know why Serena had looked uncomfortable around him lately. I told him she was single and judgmental, which was not my most elegant answer, but it was close enough. He did not move for a second. Then he took the glass from my hand, dried it carefully, and asked if I really thought he was replaceable. That word sat between us. Replaceable. I had used it 2 days earlier at brunch. I looked at him and gave a small laugh, because what else was I supposed to do? Admit that the word had tasted good when I said it? Admit that Marcy laughed so hard I felt beautiful? I told him everyone vents. I told him marriage would crush women if we could not make jokes about it. I told him if he wanted better stories told about him, he should try becoming a better story. He folded both hands around the glass. That was Ethan. Calm. Still. Already leaving the conversation without moving his feet. I read it as weakness. Maybe that was fair. A stronger man would have fought. A warmer man would have asked me why I needed strangers to laugh at him. A louder man might have made me feel chosen before I needed applause from anyone else. But Ethan only nodded and said he was trying to understand what had changed. I told him nothing had changed. And at the time, I believed that. The party was still weeks away. The toast was only an idea. The auction was not even a plan yet. It was just a joke waiting for a room. The group chat became the place where I could breathe. That is what I told myself anyway. Be honest. Every marriage has a second version. The one people see at dinners, and the one a woman sends to her friends when her husband has gone quiet again. Mine just happened to be funny. At first, I only sent small things. A photo of Ethan's text asking if we were low on paper towels. A voice note after he answered a story about my work crisis by asking whether I had eaten lunch. A screenshot of his calendar invite for a date night, because of course my husband could make romance look like a dentist appointment. Marcy loved all of it. She said I should start a survival guide for women married to human spreadsheets. Tessa sent laughing faces at first, then shorter replies. Serena mostly stayed quiet. That silence bothered me more than it should have. Serena was beautiful in a way that did not need noise. Dark hair, perfect posture, calm eyes. She was single, but not desperate. Men noticed her, and she acted like she had better things to do than notice them back. That was the part I never liked. She made restraint look powerful. I made performance look powerful. There is a difference, but I did not care for the difference then. One Saturday, after brunch, I sent a voice note to the chat from my car. I had been drinking mimosas, not enough to be sloppy, just enough to be honest. I said Ethan was not a husband as much as a quiet appliance I had learned to decorate around. Marcy replied first, as always. Tessa sent a little laugh. Serena sent nothing. Then, an hour later, she messaged the group and asked why I stayed with a man I clearly did not respect. I read it twice. Not because it hurt, because it annoyed me. I told her respect was not a wedding gift a man could keep forever. I told her women were allowed to vent. I told her single people loved giving marriage advice because they had never had to sleep beside disappointment for 6 years. Marcy backed me up right away. Of course she did. She said Serena was being too serious and that brunch was supposed to be safe. Safe. I like that word. It made what I was doing sound like survival. That night, Ethan was different. Not dramatic. Ethan was never dramatic. He sat at the dining table with his laptop closed, which already meant something was wrong, because my husband treated open tabs like unfinished prayers. He asked me about brunch. I said it was normal. He asked if I was happy. That made me laugh because it sounded so simple. Men ask questions like that when they want one clean answer to a dirty room. I told him happiness was not the point every second of adult life. He asked if respect was still the point. His voice stayed soft, but his hands were wrapped around his water glass again. Both hands. Same stillness. Same quiet exit before the conversation had even ended. I asked who had been putting words in his head. He said nobody was putting anything there. He only wanted to understand why certain words kept finding him. Certain words. That was too specific. I knew then that someone had repeated something. Maybe Tessa. Maybe Brielle. Maybe Serena had made one of her little moral speeches somewhere, and Ethan had heard enough to build a tragedy around it. I did not ask directly, because asking would have given the rumor weight. Instead, I turned it back on him. I told him this was exactly the problem. He could not give me fire, but he could give me an investigation. He could not surprise me, but he could sit me down like a manager reviewing a complaint. I told him if he wanted to be spoken about like a man with value, he should stop acting like furniture with a paycheck. That was sharp. I knew it was sharp. But sharp things get through walls. He looked at me for a long time. Then he asked if I knew how ugly I sounded when I spoke about him like that. I told him ugly was pretending everything was fine. That was my best line. I remember because I used it later in the group chat. Marcy loved it. She said I should save it for the anniversary toast. The anniversary toast had started as a normal idea. 6 years married. Friends, dinner, champagne, a few jokes, a few photos. I was good at those things. I made other people's love stories look expensive for a living. Why should mine look small? So I booked a private lounge at Vale House, a restaurant Serena's brother partly owned. I chose it because the lighting was warm, the bar looked good in pictures, and the long table would give me a perfect center point. A room has a spine. Put yourself at the spine, and people turn toward you. Ethan did not argue about the venue. He only asked if I wanted a smaller dinner, maybe just us, maybe no speeches. I told him not everything had to be quiet because he was quiet. He nodded, hands around his glass again. I thought he was learning his place. The group chat got worse after that, but I called it honest. I called him the houseplant, my emotional intern, the beige wall I married. Each name landed. Each laugh gave me back a little piece of the woman I used to be before marriage made me feel like background music. Serena stopped laughing completely. Then she stopped answering. I told Marcy that Serena was jealous because some women wanted husbands only after another woman trained them. Marcy laughed so hard she sent a voice note instead of typing. That laugh stayed with me. It sounded like permission. By the end of that week, I had decided the anniversary toast needed to be more than sweet. It needed to be true. The first real crack happened at Marcy's house, not our anniversary. Not yet. That came later. This was supposed to be a small thing. Drinks, music, a few couples, too much cheese on a board nobody wanted to admit was mostly for photos. Marcy lived in a townhouse with a narrow patio and white cushions she yelled about if anyone sat on them with dark jeans. Of course, she still called herself relaxed. I arrived early because I liked helping with the room. That was what people never understood about me. I did not just want attention. I knew how to build it. I moved candles away from the napkins. I turned one lamp off because the corner looked too bright. I told Marcy the wine bottles should stay on the side table, labels facing out. She said this was why everyone needed me. That felt good. Be honest, it is hard to hate the part of yourself that people keep rewarding. Ethan came late from work. My husband walked in wearing the grey sweater I once said made him look less like a tax form. He carried flowers for Marcy because I had trained him never to show up empty-handed. That was one thing about Ethan. He remembered rules. He remembered preferences. He remembered practical kindness like it was a job description. Marcy took the flowers and made a big face at me. She said Ethan was better trained than most men she knew. Everyone laughed. I could have stopped there. I did not. I said he was easy to train because he came with no strong settings. Someone near the kitchen laughed into their drink. Marcy pointed at me like I had just won something. Tessa smiled, but her eyes moved to Ethan. Serena was standing near the patio door with a glass she had barely touched. Ethan gave a small smile, the polite kind, the kind that made me want to push harder because it never told me where he really was. So I kept going. I said if anyone needed shelves built, quiet rides to airports, or a man who could disappear emotionally while standing right beside you, my husband was available for rent. Weekend rates might be higher, but only because he came house-trained. Marcy bent forward, laughing. One of the husbands near the bar laughed too, then checked Ethan's face and stopped. That tiny pause bothered me. A room is like a living thing. You can feel when it starts to resist you. So I gave it more. I said Ethan was useful in the way a spare chair was useful. You did not notice it until someone needed a place to sit. That one landed harder. Too hard, maybe. Marcy had her phone up by then. She was recording because Marcy recorded anything that made her feel close to the center. The little red light was on. I saw it. I liked it. Ethan saw it too. He did not step toward her. He did not make a scene. He only looked at Marcy and asked her not to post that video. Soft. Calm. Specific. That was worse than if he had snapped. Marcy lowered the phone a little. Tessa looked down. Serena's face changed. Not much, but enough for me to see it. Of course, Serena had to make silence look like judgment. I laughed and told Ethan to relax. I said nobody followed Marcy for husband content. I said the internet would survive without his tragic little flower delivery. Marcy laughed again, but not as freely. Ethan nodded once. Then his hands went around his glass. Both hands. Still. I read it as embarrassment. I read it as proof that I had finally said in public what he already knew in private. He did not like being seen clearly. That was all. Later in the car, he did not turn on the radio. That was how I knew the quiet debrief was coming. He said public contempt was different from private frustration. I told him he was using heavy words because he wanted to make me sound abusive without saying it. He said he was naming what happened. I said what happened was a joke at a party. He asked if it was still a joke when only one person was being used as the punchline. That sentence irritated me because it sounded rehearsed. Too clean. Too moral. The kind of line people repeat after someone else gives it to them. I asked if Serena had been feeding him little speeches. He looked at the road for a second too long. Then he said Serena had done nothing wrong. There it was. Not a confession. Not enough for proof. But enough for me to feel the shape of something. I closed the door on it. Serena was single. Serena was lonely. Serena liked feeling superior because she did not have a husband to disappoint her yet. That was easier to believe than the idea that someone in my own circle thought my husband needed protection from me. When we got home, Ethan asked me to think about what I wanted the anniversary party to be. A celebration or a performance. I told him those were only different things to people who were bad at both. He did not answer. The next morning, I sent a voice note to the group chat. I told them Ethan was in his wounded prince era. I said he wanted me to treat one party joke like a national emergency. Marcy replied with a laugh so loud it clipped the audio. That laugh gave me the room back. At least I thought it did. So I opened my notes app and started drafting the toast. Brielle came over 3 days later with coffee and the face people use when they have already decided they are disappointed in you. My younger sister had always been soft in public. Soft voice, soft sweaters, soft little way of making people lean closer when she spoke. Of course, everyone called that kindness. When I made people listen, they called it too much. She sat at my dining table while I looked over the anniversary seating chart. I had placed myself at the center, Ethan to my right, Marcy close enough to keep the mood alive, Serena farther down because I did not need her quiet judgment near my glass. Brielle saw the group chat preview before I could turn my phone over. It was from Marcy. She had written that the anniversary should include a replacement husband raffle. Brielle did not laugh. She asked if Ethan knew I talked about him like that. I told her it was a joke. Be honest. Every marriage has ugly little corners. I said women needed somewhere to put the things men were too fragile to hear. Brielle kept both hands around her coffee cup, like she was borrowing Ethan's stillness just to annoy me. She said venting was one thing. Building a stage where everyone threw little stones at one person was different. That line stayed in the room after she left. Not because she was right, because she sounded sure. I hated when people sounded sure against me. So I changed tactics. For the next few days, I became the wife nobody could criticize. I cooked dinner. I wore the blue sweater Ethan once liked. I posted an old wedding photo with a caption about 6 years of choosing each other. I even put a little heart at the end, which felt cheap, but people liked it. Ethan liked the photo. That was all. No comment. No soft message. No private thank you that made me feel seen. Just one quiet little tap on a screen, like a man paying a bill on time. At dinner, he thanked me for cooking. He said the pasta was good. He asked if work had been stressful. He was polite in the way strangers are polite when they share an elevator. I told myself this proved my point. When I joked, he acted wounded. When I was kind, he acted cold. Of course I needed my friends. Of course I needed a room that gave something back. That night, I walked into the hallway and heard his voice behind the bedroom door. He was on the phone. Not angry. Not loud. Ethan did not do loud. His voice was low, and that made me stop. He said he had not wanted to believe it. He said he kept trying to explain it away. Then he thanked someone for telling him the truth. My hand stayed on the doorframe. For 1 second, I thought of Serena, not Marcy. Marcy could not keep a secret long enough to wrap it. Not Tessa, who feared conflict like weather. Serena. Calm Serena. Silent Serena. Serena with her green eyes and her little moral pauses. The thought opened like a drawer I did not want to look inside. Then I shut it. Serena was not that bold. Serena liked being above things, not inside them. If she had been feeding my husband information, he would have confronted me with more than sad little questions and folded hands. So I decided it was Brielle. Or maybe Tessa. Someone soft, someone confused, someone who thought jokes became truth if they were repeated with enough concern. The next morning, I sent a voice note to the group chat from my car. I said my husband was in his wounded prince era. I said he probably thought some mystery woman was going to rescue him from his terrible wife. Then I said maybe I should auction him at the anniversary party and let someone take him off my hands. Marcy replied first. A loud laugh. A perfect laugh, the kind that made a bad thought feel like a good idea. Tessa wrote my name with 3 dots after it. Serena sent nothing. Her silence made me angrier than an insult would have. At home, Ethan was in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with the small wooden box he kept in the closet. I used to love that box. It held ticket stubs, old notes, the receipt from our first dinner, and the bent candle from the cupcake he brought me in the rain. He had that candle in his hand. He asked if there had ever been a time when I was proud to be his wife. I told him that was a trap question. He said it was a real one. I could have answered. There were answers. Small ones. Old ones. Ones I did not want to hand him because they would make me sound softer than I felt. So I told him pride had to be maintained, not stored in a box like old wax. His hands closed around the candle. Then he put it back. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just back in the box like something finished. I told myself he was being sentimental because the anniversary was close. I told myself a lot of things that week. Then I opened my notes app and moved the auction joke higher in the toast. The anniversary night was supposed to make everything clean. That was the word I kept using in my head. Clean. A clean table. A clean toast. A clean version of the truth. No hallway questions. No sad candles. No soft people acting like my marriage was too fragile to joke about. I got ready like I was walking into a room I owned. Red dress, gold earrings, hair smooth enough to survive photos, lipstick that did not move when I smiled. Be honest, There is a kind of confidence that only comes when you know people will look at you first. Ethan was already dressed when I came out. Navy suit, white shirt, no tie. He looked good. That annoyed me more than it should have. My husband was not supposed to look like someone another woman might notice. He was supposed to look like Ethan. Safe. Plain. Mine in the way furniture is yours after years in the same room. He asked if I had eaten. Of course, that was what he asked. Not that I looked beautiful. Not that he was proud to walk in with me. Food. Logistics. Care so quiet it felt like an insult. I told him I had wine. He said that was not food. I told him not to parent me on our anniversary. His hands moved toward the glass on the counter, then stopped. He did not pick it up. He only looked at it for a second, like he had decided not to touch something sharp. That small pause should have irritated me less. It did not. At Vale House, the private lounge looked exactly how I wanted. Warm lights, long table, black cloth, champagne cooling near the wall, the kind of room that made ordinary people sit straighter. Marcy arrived first and kissed both my cheeks like we were actresses in a movie. She told me I looked dangerous in the best way. That was Marcy's gift. She could take the worst part of you and make it sound like style. Tessa came next. Quieter, careful. She hugged me, but her arms were loose. Then Serena arrived, dark green dress, hair down, no bright lipstick, no loud entrance. She looked calm, which felt rude in a room I had designed to orbit me. I told her she looked like she was attending a rescue mission. She said she hoped nobody needed one. Marcy laughed because Marcy still knew her job. Tessa did not. Serena only looked at me and asked if I knew where the line was tonight. I told her lines were for people who were scared of being honest. Ethan came in behind Graham, Serena's brother, and one of the owners. Graham greeted him like he knew him. Not like staff greeting a guest. Warmer than that. I noticed it. Then I dismissed it. Ethan was the kind of man service people liked because he said thank you too much and stacked plates at restaurants. Of course Graham liked him. Dinner began well enough. People drank. People smiled. Marcy kept the conversation moving when Tessa went quiet. Serena answered politely and gave nothing away. Ethan sat beside me with his glass in front of him, touching it now and then but barely drinking. I hated how calm he was. Before dessert, he leaned closer and asked if I would step outside with him for 10 minutes. Just 10, he said. He said we could still make the night good. He said whatever I had planned did not have to happen in front of everyone. He said we could leave with dignity. Dignity. That word again. I heard control. I heard fear. I heard a man trying to pull me out of my own spotlight because he could not survive being seen clearly. I told him he did not get to make my voice private just because it made him uncomfortable. He said he was not asking for silence. He was asking for mercy. That almost worked. Almost. Then I remembered every night I stood beside him at parties while he gave people polite nods instead of telling them I was brilliant. I remembered every time I wanted heat and got calm. I remembered being lonely next to a man who thought paying bills and fixing shelves was the same as loving me. So I said the one thing he could not answer. I told him he made me lonely first. His face changed. Not much. Ethan never gave much. But enough. His hands went around his glass. Both hands. He had no answer because it was true. And because it was true, I let it become permission. Dessert came out. Small plates. Gold forks. Champagne refilled. The room softened at the edges and I felt the wine in my blood like music. I stood. Marcy's eyes lit up. Tessa looked down. Serena did not move. Ethan stayed seated. I tapped my champagne glass. Once. Twice. The room turned toward me. I began sweetly because I know how speeches work. You open the door before you set the fire. I talked about 6 years, patience, growth, marriage teaching you who you are when the photos stop. People smiled. Then I told them marriage also teaches a woman what she can live without. Marcy laughed first. Good. I said I had learned I could live without surprise, without passion. without a husband who made a room feel warmer when he entered it. I said Ethan was loyal in the way a chair was loyal, always there, rarely thrilling. The laughter came unevenly. I took uneven as interest. Then I smiled at my husband and told the room maybe it was time to make things official. Since everyone already knew I had been carrying the personality in this marriage, maybe we should open the floor. I called it a husband auction. A few people laughed because they thought they were supposed to. I said the bidding could start low. One quiet, house-trained husband, good with errands, lightly used, emotionally silent, perfect for anyone tired of men with opinions. Ethan did not move, hands around the glass, eyes on me, calm. I told the room whoever made the best offer could replace him in my life. If the number was good enough, I might even make the divorce easy. The room went thin. I smiled harder, because silence to me had always meant I was winning. So I lifted my glass and asked who wanted to make the first real bid. For 1 second, nobody moved. Not because they were confused, because everyone understood too much. My glass was still raised. My smile was still on my face. The champagne smelled too sweet, and the room felt warmer than it had a minute before. I looked at Marcy first. Her mouth was open, but no laugh came out. Tessa stared at the table. Graham stood near the bar with his arms folded. Serena sat very still, one hand on her purse. Then she stood. Her chair scraped against the floor. She opened her purse slowly and took out 10 $100 bills. Not a card, not a joke. Cash. She placed them on the black tablecloth, one bill at a time. The sound was small, paper on fabric. She said she would give $1,000 for him. The room stayed quiet. I laughed because someone had to. I told her this was embarrassing. I told her single women always wanted to rescue married men after another woman had done the hard work of making them useful. Nobody helped me. Serena said she was not buying my husband. She was answering the price I had put on him. Then Ethan stood, and he smiled. Not wide, not cruel, just calm. His hands left the glass. For the first time all night, I saw them clearly. Those folded hands had not been weakness. They had been him holding himself still while I kept giving him reasons to leave. He said Serena had been telling him the truth for months. My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. He said he had defended me at first. He had called it venting. He had called it stress. He had called it marriage looking ugly from the outside. Then he named the words: replaceable, houseplant, emotional intern, the beige wall I married. Each one landed on the table beside Serena's money. He named Marcy's video, the flowers, the voice notes, the joke about auctioning him before the party. He named the hallway call I had almost understood and then pushed away. No new secret appeared. That was the worst part. It was all mine. I told the room Serena had wanted him from the beginning. I told Graham this was manipulation. I told Tessa to say something. Tessa did not lift her head. Graham said honesty did not need an audience laughing at one person. That was all. No speech, no drama, just a door closing. Ethan reached into his jacket and placed more cash beside Serena's $2,000. He said he was adding it to the offer under one condition. I stayed out of his life. No late apologies. No public story. No pretending tomorrow that I had only been drunk. Then he took Serena's hand. Not like a man showing off. Like a man accepting help. I looked for Marcy. Her chair was empty. Her purse was gone. Ethan and Serena walked out of the lounge together. The room did not cheer. A few people looked away. Someone near the end of the table gave one short laugh, and this time it was not with me. It spread softly. I stood there in my red dress with $3,000 on the table and a champagne glass in my hand. The next week, Ethan filed a family law petition with a temporary move-out agreement. I left the apartment 12 days later. The party charge stayed on my business card. Marcy stopped answering. Tessa sent one message asking for distance. Serena did not post him, explain him, or brag about him. 2 clients postponed events after hearing I had turned my own anniversary into a scandal. Be honest. I was right about one thing. Ethan had made me lonely. But I took that loneliness and made it entertainment. I wanted witnesses. I got them. I wanted everyone to see what my husband was worth. They did. The champagne glass stayed on the table beside the cash until Graham took it away. The last thing left from my anniversary was $3,000 in an envelope and one glass nobody wanted to touch.